We good to go? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Monday, March 29th, 2021. I would like to call to order the special board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. We will have a presentation on the 3-foot social distancing announcement from the governor. I'd like to begin tonight with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to welcome everyone who is joining us tonight. If you're on social media, I think that's the only place you would be because we have an empty boardroom. Thank you for being here tonight. I am going to turn this over to Dr. Hurst, who will be giving us a presentation tonight.
Thank you very much, Mike. And
I'm sorry, quick questions. We're on YouTube also, right?
yes,
Okay, just, you said social media, so I wanted to confirm that that was the platform, because
We're
I had said
definitely
yes
on
to
YouTube.
someone. Okay, thanks.
absolutely. So we have a presentation. We have about 5 slides. We have the teaching and learning team led by Pete Perez. It's going to be presenting those slides. So we're going to have Yessie bring up those slides, and then we'll turn over to Pete.
Yessie, are you ready with the slides?
Yes.
I'm not able to view the slides on my end. Is the board able to see those slides currently? All right, and the community can see them as well, I'm going to assume, so I'll just jump right into the content. Yes, I'm just going to call out slide by slide just to make sure we stay on track. So we're going to stick on slide 1 just for a moment, and it's the opportunity tonight for us to provide a response to the amendments to the governor's recent proclamation. That those amendments were driven by the guidance from the CDC to allow schools to consider moving towards a 3-foot of social distancing model. I think it's important for folks to understand and remember that that 3-foot distance between students, it has some parameters with it, and some of those relate to the adults in our schools. Certainly the expectation from the CDC continues to be that adults remain 6 feet apart, and adults to students, we maintain that distance of 6 feet. It also indicates that in common areas like lobbies or auditoriums or other areas in our schools that are commonly used, that 6 feet of social distance would continue to be required. There's some consideration for when masks cannot be worn, such as when students are eating and during activities like singing or sports and exercise, those kinds of activities where we still want to maintain distance. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that as schools move to the 3-foot gap, that there's an expectation of an increase in close contacts, certainly, because those students will be identified as close contacts, and perhaps a resulting increase in exclusions from our campus if there is a close contact. Now, we think it's important that we provide the update tonight for the board and the community, because certainly there's national, regional, and local pressure to open up our schools in a more traditional format. I think it's important that we acknowledge that we made some tough choices early on that have benefited the students, specifically at the secondary levels related to our master schedules, our course offerings, and we adjusted class size dramatically and really made some key moves at the secondary level. And some other systems chose not to do that. So I think when communities are being compared here locally, that it's important to understand that the models that are being run in some of our communities aren't as rigorous or as robust as what we've put together here in Othello over the last several months. And so I think it's important that we recognize the quality of the work that's happening currently at our school sites. Next slide, please. So what we want to talk about a little bit is eligibility. Are we in a position where we should consider this move? And there are some guiding principles from CDC. One relates to the counts per 100,000. So we certainly spent many hours talking and thinking about that work over the last several months. But now the CDC is using 200 per 100,000 and a 10% positivity rate as guidance for schools to consider. I believe just about an hour ago, the local Department of Health released the current count for Othello, and it just broke 150. So trending up just a bit, certainly not the high levels that we were experiencing months ago, but definitely a concern for the local Department of Health. And it's my understanding as of this morning that the current positivity rate for the county is just at 11% and trending upward. So we're just above the 10% positivity that the CDC calls for and approaching that number around 200. So certainly some caution was shared this morning by the Department of Health about opening more fully. Now, I think I'm going to start with the secondary level because it's important for the community and the board to understand that we're not in a position because of the schedule that we've designed that we would be able to keep our students 6 feet apart or be allowed to cohort them. We wanted them to have as traditional as an experience as we could in our high schools, even though it was 50% of the time, and cohorting does not allow for that. And so we haven't defined cohorting over time, but it is when groups of students are kept together with their peers and the same teacher. Very, very difficult to do in a secondary setting, so not something that we've done. And it's also, I think, an opportunity to acknowledge that COVID-19 transmission among older students, it's a different dynamic than that we experience in our elementary students. So having said all that, it's important for folks to know very clearly that our secondary schools are not in a position to move towards a less restrictive model with 3 feet of social distancing. So the bulk of our conversation tonight will focus on our K-6 schools. And certainly there will have to be some adjustments to meal service and our lunch schedule and transportation. And Sandra's going to talk about some of those operational issues. And then probably most importantly, the instructional schedules and activities that happen in our schools. John's going to touch on those before we wrap up for the evening. So we'll turn it over to Sandra.
Next slide, Yessie. So just some operational pieces we want to touch on. One of them will be the meal service. So we're currently operating out of the summer food service program, which would require us to transition to requiring some hot meals for our students. So obviously that would mean that we would need to look at our inventory and what that would mean to prep some hot meals for students. And then we could anticipate some loss in revenue because the breakfast after the bell does not require breakfast for all students. So another piece to consider there. In regards to eating meals, so breakfast and lunch, we don't have a large enough space to house all of those students. So the 3 feet rule would not apply to sitting down and eating the meals. We need to prepare for that 6 feet distance because if the students are going to be taking down their masks, definitely want that 6 feet between those students. And it also is a requirement. The other piece is around supervision at mealtime. So just ensuring that we have enough staff to supervise those students in all those different places. So if we have to house students in the gym or corridors or in different room spaces, having enough staff to do that. So we would need to make sure we do that. The other piece is around transportation. Obviously, that would mean that we have to double up on our routes. We have the morning service that goes out to our students, but this would require a midday service. As Pete just mentioned, our secondary students will have, that there would be no change to their day. So we would need to go out again and get those students. So changing to staffing contracts and whatnot to do that. Food service and transportation have been one of the two of the most hardworking departments that we've had here at the district. I mean, they've been going nonstop, as you know, since last March. So over a year, never complain. Such hard workers, and their directors were the first ones to come forward and say, we will do what we need to do to make sure that, we carry forward what the district needs are. But I know that they would appreciate some consistency and not having to adjust in the next 40 days that we have left of the school year. So again, just some of the things to consider operationally, things that can be done if we needed to do it.
All right, next slide, Missy. So in addition to the significant operational challenges that Sandra just brought up, there are several instructional considerations that we need to address. So as the board is well aware, this past calendar year, we've had to pivot our instructional model several times, and certainly all with the student and staff's best interest in mind as we did so. But over these past several weeks, the students and staff had consistency in their schedule, and they've created some momentum in student learning. When students return back from spring break, as Sandra had mentioned, we'll have right around 40 instructional days remaining for the school year. And we certainly want to maximize that time. We also look forward to having all of our students return to our schools, but there's some concern that the momentum in learning that we're now experiencing will be disrupted if we transition to a new instructional model again, particularly in such a short time period. So some of those considerations, if we were to transition, would be the reteaching time that it will take for students around routines and procedures and expectations, because we'll have full classrooms and we'll have full campuses. And so it will require changes in our processes and procedures for that. We'll likely need to restructure the attestation process, because as it stands right now, if we were to double the students, we would in fact double the time and the length of lines. And so we need to look at how to even more so try to expedite that or find space for the students to wait for their turn. It would take a full adjustment of staffing schedules, from our paraprofessionals to specialists to our classroom teachers. All of that would need to be reworked. Our student interventions and IEP services, the special schedule, that would also need to be reworked, and would also require a new scope and sequence that our teachers and teams would need to develop, which outlines when, what is taught at what time, and all of that has been created in our current model and then would need to be recreated if we were to switch instructional models. Some of the potential benefits if we were to stay the course and be able to is that continued consistency for our students, our families, our teachers. And one of the kind of hidden benefits of the model that we're in now, it has allowed for more one-on-one instructional time with our struggling students, which has certainly been a benefit. All of the pieces that we talked about, or the considerations that would need to be addressed, certainly won't go away as we look and plan for the upcoming school year. But what it would allow for us is to be able to have, we wouldn't have to rush the process that we are already in the works and would continue through professional development and meeting with teachers and getting input around setting those new structures in place, so that you could begin the school year with everything established and ready to go. So those would be the considerations for the instruction.
Now, next slide, please, Jesse. And we'll jump right to the recommendation from the district. We are very interested in finishing the year strong with our current model K-12. As John just indicated and Sandra provided some clarity around the operational issues, we've developed a very efficient system, and our teachers and leaders are doing an excellent job of providing services to our students in the most efficient way we can. If we have to pivot, we certainly can. I think that should be noted as well. I think the staff has demonstrated a certain level of flexibility and creativity to make things happen when they need it to. But from an instructional perspective, we really feel strongly that staying in our current model for the remainder of the school year is the right move. This would also provide an opportunity for us to continue planning for some adjustments we've made to our summer school model to prepare for summer professional development for our staff, and then most importantly, to prepare for the next school year. We expect to be fully back in a traditional model in August, and not back to normal, which I think everybody wants, but really back better. taking the lessons that we've learned over the last several months and making sure that the services we provide to our students and our families is the best that it can be. So our recommendation and what we're asking the board to consider is that we stay in our current model, we continue to refine it, provide consistency for our students and our staff, and we do the best we can to get prepared for summer school and for the school year next year. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
I do have a question. So would summer school be in the traditional model and like, I don't want to say the word guinea pig, but testing out some of the details? Or would that not happen until the fall? Or has that been discussed?
Well, just for clarity, I assume when you say traditional model, you're saying larger classes, 3 feet of social distance. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes, under the governor's current new
Right.
guidelines.
Yeah, I think we would certainly want to maximize the space, and if we, we're planning with the model as designed currently, so to have smaller class sizes, continuing with that model throughout the summer, unless the numbers tell us differently. What we have done is we've adjusted our summer school offering significantly, particularly at the elementary level. So traditionally, we would bring 500 or 600 students to one campus. That site would rotate every couple of years across the district. This year, we're going to run a summer school program, K-6, at each individual school site. So we'll offer the same number of slots, but able to provide continuity and efficiency, pick up from right where we left off as the school year ends. So there'll be less transition, and we're looking forward to trying out some new practices and systems to refine what summer school looks like moving forward. So the experience for the students and the families will be different in that way, but the move towards the traditional model, we don't expect to make that happen until next school year.
Thank you for that clarity.
Any further questions? I would just like to, if you can clarify, Pete, I know you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the new guidelines, are those state guidelines or those national guidelines on the 200 and the 10%?
Yeah, well, we really work our systems and protocols off of local guidance.
Okay.
So every Monday, we have an opportunity to sit in a formal session with the local Department of Health. There are typically about 100 folks on that phone call from school districts and healthcare facilities in our local area. So we rely on that information. So the information that I shared was pulled from the CDC site, the federal site, but it's certainly referenced continually in those meetings that we have on Monday morning. So this morning, what was shared with us was that Othello was at about 11% positivity rate, and they were expecting an upward trend in the count per 100,000. And we did note that this afternoon. So the guidance that we take and we put into action is really locally driven from our local Department of Health, which is informed and influenced by the State Department of Health, which is informed and influenced by the CDC. But our contacts are with Dr. Bresney and his staff.
Any further observations from any other board members? Well, we appreciate that information, Pete. Dr. Hurst, the entire team. Once again, we want to thank you. Being that our numbers are where they're at as of this day, I think we will continue on the path that we are now, keeping the numbers and the statistics at the forefront. I mean, if all of a sudden everything turns a certain way and everything is like bottoms out, just knowing that we can revisit it again, unless there's another recommendation or another idea.
Can I say something, Mike? I just want to be clear. I want kids back in school all day, every day. Period. I want kids back in school full time. However, I have called 5 principals, and it doesn't seem like the support is there, and several teachers. and even parents. Before, when we were taking this whole kids back in school versus not back in school, I was hearing from parents constantly, why are our kids not back in school? So I felt like majority ruled, right? The majority of phone calls and pressure that I was getting was putting kids back in school. Right now, it's the opposite. So for me, majority rules, even though I personally want kids back in school full time, the majority of people coming to me are saying, not this year. But I will be a dog with a bone if we are having this conversation in the fall, because I absolutely will not accept anything less than kids in school all day, every day come the fall. And so right now, I'm ready to say, okay, I will put my personal feelings aside and let's do what's best for kids and best for the district. And if this is what the district recommends, I'm fine with that. But I will not be fine with that come the fall. So I'm happy to see that on this plan, it looks like we're going back better than ever in the fall. I hope that that's the path that we stay on, because that is a fight I will not give up on. So that's just where I stand with it.
I feel the same. I have been really persistent in wanting my voice known that I want the kids back in school. And I think that the people that don't want have spoken up, but there are many that want to go back, teachers, students, parents, but they're not speaking up. So I will go with majority, but I certainly want to see things go back full time in the fall. I hope we can work on this really hard to make sure this happens.
You know, I appreciate the fact that you guys are voicing your opinions. Something that I enjoy is our ability to speak our minds. And with your intent, with your the vigor that y'all are saying that, we do need to keep in mind that we are doing the best we can at this time with what we're giving. Hopefully come August, this is a non-issue. Hopefully numbers are where they need to be and even better. Let's continue to keep safety at the forefront of what we're doing. And for me at this time, it's more about the continuity of, like you say, Sharon, I was going to say the majority, but everybody that's reached out to me personally is in favor of staying the same way, whether it was parents or teachers. I did not talk to principals like you did, Lindsay, but I did speak to a lot of teachers and those that reached out to us via email. Thank you for that, by the way. If some of you are listening, we appreciate your feedback. But I think we should heed to the recommendation at this point in time. But again, I am still of the opinion that even with 40-plus days of instructional days after spring break, we keep a pulse on it, and we continue to look at these numbers anyway. Ken, I'm sorry, I know I interrupted.
No, I was just going to agree. This has probably been one of the most responses we've had, emails to us in all the subjects that we've had in front of us, even when we were trying to get kids back into school. I haven't seen as much as response as we had to this one. I've even had a lot of teachers that were very adamant that we get back into school talk to me again this time, and they said that they're happy with the model right now. With what's best for kids is working right now because they feel they're getting a lot more one-on-one time with their students, and it's working good right now, and they just feel that with under 2 months left, it's that transition change that might be a little more confusing for every. So I'm on board at staying and looking at it where we're now, and as Mike said, take the pulse of it a little bit later. But when it comes this fall, I'm ready, all in, full day, back to go. Definitely, we need to get back there.
All right, once again, want to thank Chris, Pete, the entire team for the presentation.
Can I say?
I'm sorry, I didn't look that way.
It's okay. I know normally I'm not the last one. I agree that yet another transition on a very difficult year would make things less effective, and that time would be lost in learning new things, not learning new things, in learning the new systems and all of those kinds of things. So I do agree that with what has been said and suggested by the district, that we stay under our current model. I am not quite ready to say we have to be back full day in the fall, because who knows where the numbers will be then. Hopefully much less than they are now, but there's never a for sure with anything, I guess. And so just want to say there's so many benefits to the smaller groups, to the system that we have now, that we've never been able to explore before. And I like many aspects of it. I know that we can't keep it all the time, but I'm happy staying where we're at right now, personally.
All right, very good. Thank you once again, Dr. Hurst, Pete, the entire team for the presentation. We will now go into recess for 2 minutes if anyone needs to take a break. We will go into executive session. The Board of Directors will recess into executive session for 30 minutes to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase. So we will reconvene at 6:28. No action will be taken, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone who was on listening tonight.